Every single day, we're walking, driving, and living right on top of this massive, hidden network of power lines. But have you ever really stopped to think about what's actually protecting all that critical wiring? I mean, from rocks and water and, that one time you decide to dig a new garden bed? Well, today, we're gonna dig in.
And that right there, that's the whole ball game. Because as our source material makes crystal clear, the choices you make for buried wiring, they can be the difference between a system that just works for like 40 years without a peep, and one that becomes this recurring nightmare of repairs and, frankly, a huge drain on your wallet. Getting it right from the start is absolutely crucial.
So let me ask you straight up, what is down there, guarding the electricity that's powering your life right now? The answer is not just dirt. No, there's a real unsung hero in this story, and its job is to stand guard 24/7, no matter what.
The tricky part, of course, is that this is all happening underground. It's totally invisible. Out of sight, out of mind. A problem can be brewing for years without a single sign until that one day, poof, the lights go out. And now you're stuck with a very expensive and probably very muddy problem to solve.
And this is our hero. Let's all say hello to underground electrical conduit. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a personal bodyguard for your electrical wires. It's basically a tough, protective pipe that we bury first, creating this safe, hollow tunnel. Then we just pull the wires through it, shielding them from pretty much everything the Earth can throw at them.
So let's get to know this underground protector a little better. It isn't just a simple pipe, it's a whole system, and it's designed with some very specific goals in mind. Let's take a look at its mission.
Okay, so here are its 4 main jobs. First, mechanical protection. That's just a fancy way of saying it stops rocks and shovels from slicing up your wires. Second, moisture control. Pretty obvious, it keeps the conductors dry. Third, organization and future access. And this is a huge deal. It means you can add or even replace wires years from now without having to dig up your entire yard again. And finally, code compliance. It ensures the whole setup is safe and meets the strict standards of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, which is all about keeping people and property safe from electrical hazards.
Now here's the thing. Not all protectors are created equal. Just like a mechanic has a whole set of different wrenches, a good electrician has a toolkit of different conduit types, and each one is perfect for a specific job. So let's meet the main players.
I love how this slide frames the 2 most common choices. On one side, you've got your PVC. It's the lightweight, corrosion-proof workhorse. It's cheap, it's easy to work with, and it's perfect for most residential jobs, like running power out to a shed. But what if that power line has to go under a driveway, where cars are going to be driving over it? Well, then you call in the champion, rigid metal conduit, or RMC. This stuff is a beast. It's thick-walled, galvanized steel. It costs more, for sure, but that incredible strength is non-negotiable when there's a risk of it getting crushed.
And then you've got the controversial one, EMT, or electrical metallic tubing. Now this is that thin-walled steel conduit you see running all over the place indoors in commercial buildings. The code recently changed, and technically it's now allowed to be buried directly in the ground. But, as our source points out, ask any seasoned pro and they're still really, really cautious about it. Why? Well, that thin protective coating gets scratched pretty easily during installation, and once that happens, rust is going to have a field day. It's a risk most just aren't willing to take for long-term reliability.
This chart just pulls it all together perfectly. Think of it as your cheat sheet for matching the right tool to the right job. You can see right here, for a basic run across a residential yard, standard PVC is your go-to. Crossing that driveway? Yep, there's RMC, just as we talked about. And for some really specialized jobs, like in a chemical plant or right near the coast with salty ground, you'd upgrade to something heavy-duty like fiberglass to fight off all that corrosion.
All right, so you've picked out the right kind of conduit. The next question everyone immediately asks is, okay, so how deep do I actually have to dig this trench? And the answer isn't just one number. It's actually based on a really simple logical principle.
This chart from the source explains that logic perfectly. The National Electrical Code basically says this: the stronger your conduit is, the less dirt you need to pile on top of it for protection. It makes total sense, right? That's why RMC, our metal champion, can sometimes be buried as shallow as just 6 inches deep. The pipe itself is doing most of the protecting. On the other hand, weaker wiring methods need a lot more soil on top to keep them safe from, say, a stray shovel.
So, with all that in mind, what's the one number you should probably remember for the most common project out there, a residential run using standard PVC? 18 inches. For a typical yard, burying your PVC conduit with at least 18 inches of cover, measured from the top of the pipe to the surface, is the magic number.
So we've got the right material, we know the right depth. Now let's bring it all home and tackle a couple more really practical questions that'll help you make the absolute smartest choice for your project.
Okay, here's a question that comes up all the time. Should I use Schedule 40 or Schedule 80 PVC? The only difference is how thick the wall of the pipe is. Schedule 40 is the standard stuff, totally fine for the parts that are going to stay buried in the trench. But Schedule 80, with its much thicker, tougher wall, that's what you have to use for any section that comes up out of the ground or is exposed to potential damage, like near a driveway. A really smart design will often use both.
And now we come to the ultimate strategic choice. Look, you could just use a special direct burial cable and skip the conduit altogether. It is cheaper up front, no question. But the major drawback? If that cable ever gets damaged, or let's say in 5 years you want to add more power for an EV charger, well, you got to get the excavator back out and dig the whole thing up again. A conduit system is an investment. It costs a little more now, but what you're really buying is a permanent, easy-access highway for any future repairs or upgrades.
So let's just boil all this down into a few key takeaways. First, for most backyard projects, standard PVC conduit is going to be your best friend. Second, anywhere that pipe comes up out of the ground and is exposed, you got to upgrade to the tougher Schedule 80 PVC or even a metal conduit. Third, remember that magic number for burying residential PVC, 18 inches of cover. And finally, the big one, try to think of a conduit system not as an expense, but as a really smart investment in the future of your property.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought. The next time you're planning an outdoor project, ask yourself this simple question. Are you just burying a wire for today? Or are you installing a protected, flexible system that's going to serve you well for decades to come? Trust me, that choice makes all the difference.